Raheem Sterling, once hailed as one of England's bright talents, being part of the best Man City team of all time and shining in the international stage, Sterling is now found in a weird predicament, being frozen out of the Chelsea first team and his career at the top level seemingly over at the age of 30. But how does a four-time Premier League winner end up in this position? To figure this out, we need to go back to the beginning. After spending 7 years at the academy of QPR, before even making his professional debut, Sterling was signed by Liverpool in February of 2010 for an initial fee of £450,000. After playing for the youth team for about 2 years, he made his senior Liverpool debut as a substitute in a league match against Wigan at 17 years old, becoming the third youngest player to ever play for the club. He would properly start getting playing time in the 2012-13 season, making his European debut in August of 2012 in a qualifying match against Belarusian club Gomel. The following week, he would score his first goal for the club in a friendly against Bayer Leverkusen. He was given his first ever start in the league in a 2-2 draw at Anfield. Here he began not only starting regularly, but even playing the full 90 minutes, becoming an integral part of the squad. At this stage, Sterling's style was defined by raw pace, dribbling, and an eagerness to take defenders on, a trait that made him stand out. He scored his first competitive goal on the 20th of October 2012, scoring in a 1-0 league win against Reading. This made him the second youngest player to score in a competitive fixture for Liverpool, only behind the legendary Michael Owen. On the 14th of November, he made his senior debut for England, starting in a friendly against Sweden. With him finally beginning to show his worth as one of the top talents in England, Sterling signed a contract extension for Liverpool on the 21st of December 2012, committing his future to the club. Although he would only end up scoring 3 goals and getting 2 assists this season, Sterling would end up playing 2,395 total minutes for the club, averaging around 63 minutes per match, which for a player in his first full professional season for a big club like Liverpool is really impressive. The 2013-14 season was even better for the young Sterling, where although every now and again Suarez would start on the left wing position, most of the time Sterling was the starter, playing even more minutes than the previous season, racking up around 2,600 minutes for the club. But most importantly, he improved his goal tally from 3 goals to 11 and his assists from 3 to 9, showing clear signs of improvement. This season gave him even more media recognition when on April 18th, 2014, he was named as one of the 6 players on the shortlist of the PFA Young Player of the Year award. Even though he didn't win the award, this still showed that people were recognizing his performances. At the end of the season, even Liverpool acknowledged how talented he was, being named as Liverpool's Young Player of the Year. Most importantly though, England were aware of how good Sterling was, giving him a call-up to the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. In a pre-tournament friendly on the 4th of June against Ecuador in Miami, Sterling got his first career red card when he slid into Antonio Valencia, who reacted by grabbing his neck, with both players being sent off. Regardless of this, on the 14th of June, Sterling started in England's opening group match, a 2-1 loss to Italy in Manaus, where he would funnily enough score a ghost goal from a shot that hit the side netting, which looked like it went in, even fooling the BBC, who had to update the scoreline back to 0-0. He would however pre-assist the England goal with a great pass to Rooney, who himself played a great ball to Sturridge, who tied the game. Sterling would also be rated as the team's best performing player by the BBC, showing how mature he was for his age. He would also start on the right wing in a 2-1 loss against Uruguay and would come on as a sub in the final game of the tournament, a 0-0 draw against group winners Costa Rica. This World Cup was a big learning lesson for Raheem, considering he played in his first major tournament internationally, giving him great experience for years to come. Around this time, Sterling would begin being criticized in the media, in particular for his off-field decisions. The media would spew lies like saying that Sterling was a father to 5 children at the age of 18, which he wasn't. He only had 1 child. This will later on become a pattern in Sterling's career, constantly being criticized in the media for either meaningless things or straight up lies. The 2014-15 season started off great for Sterling, scoring and assisting in the first Prem game against Southampton. On the 16th of September, he made his UCL debut against Ludogorets at Anfield. On the 14th of December, he made his 100th appearance for Liverpool in the derby against Manchester United. This really puts into perspective how early Sterling started getting regular minutes, considering that by the time he reached this milestone, he had just turned 20. Playing for a top team like Liverpool makes it even more impressive. Just 6 days later, he won the Golden Boy Award, a dream for any young talent. Around February of 2015 is when a big contract dispute with Liverpool started, which heavily tainted his reputation. Liverpool offered Sterling £100,000 a week, which was declined. And how do we know this? Because Liverpool's manager came out to the media and broke this news. Not any journalist, the manager. On April the 1st, this was confirmed by Sterling himself in an unsanctioned interview with the BBC, denying that it had to do with money, but at the same time not really saying exactly why he rejected the contract, simply stating that he wanted to focus on football and would not make a decision until the end of the season.
I just need to focus on football at this moment in time. I don't want everything to be about this contract.
At best, this would mean that he wanted to leave Liverpool because he wanted to join a club with a better chance of of winning, and at worst, it would mean that he wanted to leave Liverpool for more money. Liverpool fans would go with the latter, and it's safe to say they didn't respond well to this.
Raheem Sterling, one word.
Oh,
Dog.
Loser.
money grabbing.
Who'll end up
We're a people's club. And if you ain't gonna play for the people, off.
Brendan Rodgers wasn't too happy either, criticizing Sterling's advisor AD Ward for the interview, saying, "You are not a 20-year-old boy and you pick up the phone and ask to speak to the BBC. You don't do it," him in particular. But of course, if he is asked to do that by other parties, then that is what he'll do. Regardless, he finished off the season quite well, once again being named on the shortlist of the PFA Young Player of the Year award and winning the Young Player of the Season once again for Liverpool on the 19th of May, being booed by fans due to the contract situation. On the 21st of May, his agent made it clear that Sterling wasn't staying, once again stating that it had nothing to do with money. "I don't care about the PR of the club and the club's situation. He is definitely not signing. He's not signing for 700, 800, 900,000 pounds a week." So due to this, Man City sent an offer to Liverpool of 30 million pounds on June the 11th, which was rejected. 1 week later, they reportedly rejected another offer of 40 million pounds, with Liverpool valuing Sterling at 50, which in my opinion is fair. Sterling at the time was one of the best talents in world football, so there was no reason for Liverpool to agree to a bad deal just because Sterling wanted to leave. However, Sterling wouldn't give them much choice, with him asking to be left out of Liverpool's preseason tour to Asia and missing 2 days of training through illness. The message was clear: Sterling wanted to go. So on June the 12th, 2015, a deal was agreed between Liverpool and Man City for an initial fee of 44 million pounds, which made him at the time the most expensive English footballer ever. He signed a 5-year contract, earning around 180,000 pounds a week. And like this, Sterling began a new chapter in his career. He made his debut for Manchester City on the 10th of August in a 3-0 win away to West Brom. 19 days later, Sterling scored his first competitive goal for Manchester City in a 2-0 win against Watford. He scored his first career hat-trick in a 5-1 win against Bournemouth. He even scored his first Champions League goal on the 3rd of November in an away win against Sevilla. Overall, in his first season, apart from suffering a groin injury against Manchester United in March of 2016, his first season at Man City went well. He got his usual 11 goals and 9 assists, which was fine, but for the transfer fee he was brought in for, people expected more from him. He was still a raw talent who needed to improve quite a bit on aspects like finishing and decision making. One man would mold Sterling into an absolute monster, and that man was Pep Guardiola. The 2016-17 season saw Man City sign genius manager Pep Guardiola, looking to build a long-term project with the Spaniard. Needing to implement his style of play, Pep opted for new signings in multiple positions due to lack of quality or certain players not fitting the style. He could have easily looked at Sterling and decided to replace him with a different player. Man City had the money and plenty of teams would be in for the winger. However, he saw something special in Sterling, despite him at times being a chaotic winger. Although they finished 3rd in the league, with the City team needing time to adapt to the new style of play, improvements were shown throughout the team and Sterling wasn't an exception. Pep publicly praised the forward, saying he was one of the most improved players at the club. He still recorded 10 goals in all competitions, with his finishing still needing some improvement, but what improved was his assists. He recorded 16 assists, improving a lot in chance creation, slowly being molded to more than just a pacey winger. The 17-18 season was where he became an undoubtedly world-class player. This season was a historic one for Man City, with them creating a truly unstoppable team. This season, they won the Premier League with a record-breaking 100 points, something that had never been done before, scoring a whopping 106 goals, conceding only 27. This season saw Pep moving Sterling into more central attacking position, turning more into an inside forward, whether that was on the left or right hand side, rather than a touchline winger, which he had been mostly throughout his career. With players like De Bruyne and David Silva creating hundreds of chances, and players like Aguero and Jesus creating space, Sterling was constantly finding himself in goal-scoring position. He really simplified his game, with fewer dribbles and more off-the-ball runs. He managed to score a career high at the time, 23 goals and 14 assists, a massive improvement to previous seasons. He was no longer that raw talent with potential. Under Pep, he was one of the best wingers in the world. On May the 28th, 2018, The Sun published a very weird front page article about a gun tattoo that Sterling had, with the headline reading, "Raheem shoots himself in the foot," accompanied by a photo of the tattoo on his right leg. The article triggered widespread backlash due to its lack of context. Sterling had this tattoo as a symbol for his anti-gun stance, referencing the fact that his father was shot and killed back in Jamaica when he was only 2 years old. This wasn't the first time The Sun or any other news article published Sterling's off-the-pitch decisions, as this was a recurring theme throughout his career. Take the time he bought his mother a house in 2016, with the front page reading, "Obscene Raheem," saying he was showing off his blinging house in a picture that he posted on his socials showing a sink in the house. house, totally disregarding the context, or the time the Daily Star mocked his filthy £50,000 Mercedes in 2017. Simultaneously, there were stories mocking him for eating pasties from Greg's, shopping in Pound World, and flying with EasyJet, as if people who earn a lot and might like to spend their money on expensive things can't do normal everyday things like a normal person. If he spent a lot, he was flashy. If he didn't, he was still ridiculed. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I can go on and on listing the hundreds of times he was criticized for absolutely nothing in the press, with him clearly being the #1 target of the media for a very long time. Anyways, in the 2018 World Cup, he played up front with Harry Kane and was used by Southgate to stretch defenses with his pace, drag defenders away from Kane, and press aggressively from the front. And although he didn't get any direct goal involvements, his position helped Kane get the golden boot in that World Cup, scoring 6 goals, and England going all the way to the semi-final, where they were eventually beaten by Croatia. Sterling picked up right where he left off in the 2018-19 season, playing a pivotal role in Man City going back-to-back in the Premier League, with Sterling recording 25 goals and 16 assists, playing 4,100 minutes, averaging around 80 minutes per game. Sterling had always been a regular in whatever team he played in, but this season saw him play 500 more minutes than the previous, really showing that he was an integral part to this Man City team, despite competition from the likes of Leroy Sané and Gabriel Jesus. The 2019-20 season was the best season of Sterling's career, and easily his peak. He started off the season scoring a hat-trick against West Ham. This wasn't the first time that he would score a hat-trick that season though, scoring 3 goals against Atalanta in the Champions League and Brighton in the Premier League. City until that point hadn't had much success in the Champions League, never even reaching the semi-finals. Due to the pandemic, the Champions League knockouts were to be played without fans and in one leg. After beating Real Madrid with Sterling scoring in a 2-1 victory, they were up against Lyon. On paper this would be an easy matchup, but no, this match was far from easy. City were defeated 3-1 with Sterling missing an open goal, a miss that has become quite iconic. Despite this, the 1920 season was amazing for Raheem, scoring 31 goals and 10 assists, with his market value peaking at 160 million euros. The 2020-21 season was an interesting one for Sterling's career. Although he was still very much a regular starter for the citizens, he faced a bit more competition from the likes of Phil Foden and Ferran Torres. Pep preferred to play Sterling more in the Premier League, whilst in the Champions League he mainly got his minutes in the group stage, starting way less in the knockout stages, with Mahrez starting on the right wing and Foden on the left. In fact, apart from the first leg of the round of 16 against Borussia Mönchengladbach, he didn't start a single game in the knockout phase, sometimes even being an unused substitute. Although this isn't surprising considering Pep Guardiola historically has liked to tweak his teams based on his opponent, it probably didn't sit well with Sterling, who was just off the back of his best season of his career. City once again won the league. They also reached the Champions League final, where they were to face Chelsea in the Estadio do Bragado in Porto. Surprisingly enough, Pep decided to start Sterling in the final, going without the defensive midfielder, which forced Gundogan to play deeper and allowed for Foden to drop into midfield, leaving the left wing spot available for Sterling. That final was a tough one for Raheem, failing to contribute much on the left hand side, often being isolated by Chelsea's defense, with Reece James and Azpilicueta totally locking the winger down. But to be fair to Sterling, Pep's approach in this game was entirely wrong, hence why they lost the final 1-0 despite being clear favourites to win. Euro 2020 was a very successful campaign for Sterling, showing that he was still a top player. He scored the first and only goal in the opening match against Croatia, scoring in the 57th minute. He once again scored the only goal against Czechia in the final game of the group stage, helping England go through to the knockouts in first place. In the round of 16 against Germany, he scored the first goal for England in the 75th minute, before Kane sealed the deal for the English in the 86th minute. In the semi-finals against Denmark, he won a penalty for England, which was ultimately missed by Kane, who scored on the rebound to make it 2-1 and send England to the final. Unfortunately for Sterling, despite playing a pivotal role in England reaching the final of the Euros, England would end up losing against Italy on penalties, not even getting the chance to shoot a penalty due to Southgate preferring the likes of Rashford, Sancho and Saka, who all, unfortunately for England, missed their penalties. Despite losing the final, he had a very strong campaign, even being named in the team of the tournament. The 2021-22 season saw Man City sign Jack Grealish for a British record £100 million. He was City's biggest signing that season. This gave Sterling even more competition, considering his main position at the time was the left side of attack. His starts significantly went down, starting only 2 of their first 7 Premier League matches, and this continued throughout the season. Don't get things wrong, it's not like he wasn't starting at all. He still started in 23 Prem matches and 5 Champions League matches. However, it was just clear that the more City signed new players, the more Sterling's minutes went down, with Pep wanting to focus even more on ball retention, hence why Grealish basically secured the place in Man City's starting 11. The fewer played minutes reflected in his goals and assists, scoring 17 goals, 3 more than the previous season, but still 14 less than in his prime 2 seasons prior. On the 11th of May, he scored in a 5-1 win against Wolves, a goal which would be the last goal he ever scored for Man City. Wanting to play more minutes and and returned to playing a pivotal role for his team, Sterling signed for Chelsea on a 5-year contract for a fee of £47.5 million on a £325,000 per week contract. On August the 27th, he scored his first goals for the club, getting a brace in a 2-1 win against Leicester City and scored in the next match against Southampton. He even got his first Champions League goal for the club under newly promoted manager Graham Potter. Initially, Graham Potter played a 3-5-2, where weirdly enough Sterling was mainly being played as a wingback rather than a second striker. He did so until the end of October, where after a 4-1 loss to Brighton, where Sterling struggled quite a bit as a wingback, he opted to play in the normal 4 at the back, with actual wingers up top. In the World Cup, which was hosted in the winter that year in Qatar, Sterling scored England's 3rd goal in the opening game for England in a 6-2 win against Iran. On the 4th of December, when England played against Senegal, Sterling left the England squad to return to London after armed intruders broke into his home while his family were in the home. Thankfully, his family was okay, with him even returning for England's 2-1 loss against France in the quarterfinals. Despite Graham Potter returning to a normal 4 at the back, Sterling's numbers dropped quite a bit from previous seasons. Not only did he score less than 10 goals in a season for the first time since 2013, but his successful take-ons and chances created fell short of what they used to be. His expected goals per 90 also dropped significantly from 0.55 in his last season at City to 0.26. You could argue it wasn't even Sterling's fault, considering Chelsea scored just 38 league goals all season, their lowest tally since the 1995-96 campaign. At the end of the day, for the limited service he got, he overperformed stat-wise, scoring 0.32 goals per 90, outscoring his 0.26 XG per 90. However, he did get criticism in the media, suggesting he at times looked lost and that his decision-making had regressed. And who can blame him? Graham Potter's tactics at Chelsea forced him to play multiple positions, never really playing a specific role in the 11. However, next season, with Chelsea getting rid of Potter and hiring Pochettino, Sterling would have a new opportunity to prove himself. Under Pochettino, Sterling played as an out-and-out winger, mainly continuing on the left side. In this spell, Sterling averaged his highest progressive carries and dribbles per 90 since leaving Man City. However, as the season progressed, output and influence plateaued. Chelsea's attack continued to lack fluency, and Sterling's inconsistency re-emerged, with his decision-making around the box continuing to draw scrutiny. Since December, he managed to score only 3 goals in the league, with him being benched more often than the prior season. Ironically enough, he was now playing less minutes than at Man City, accumulating only 2,760 minutes in total. Pochettino was sacked at the end of the season, with Leicester City manager Enzo Maresca being appointed. With Chelsea signing what feels like hundreds of players in the Ted Boehly era, new manager Maresca made it clear he was going to train with 27 out of the 43 available players, forcing 15 players to train separately. This included players like goalkeeper Kepa, who later joined Bournemouth on loan, Romelu Lukaku, who joined Napoli, Chalobah, who went out on loan to Crystal Palace but was ironically later recalled back to Chelsea, Ben Chilwell, and finally Raheem Sterling. But why? I mean, Sterling's 2 seasons at Chelsea up until that point hadn't been awful. He still managed to average 16 goals and assists in those 2 seasons, even if it wasn't that good for his standards. Well, I think we can reason this in 3 points. Number 1, tactics. Enzo Maresca made it clear that Sterling didn't fit his tactics. Maresca prefers a specific type of winger who can play out on the flank and stretch defenses, with great one-on-one ability. Sterling perhaps was once that, but now he wasn't. This leads to reason number 2, physical decline. Sterling, despite showing flashes of his older self, was not the same player he used to be. He had lost a good chunk of his pace and explosiveness. You have to take into consideration Sterling had played almost 600 games by that point, with a lot of people pointing out that by then he was played out, and really the decline could be seen years back. At the age of 27, he had played half a thousand games, and even though the decision to leave was most likely fueled by him being eager to play more minutes, Pep surely must have seen something, as he let him go without much of a fuss. And what is potentially the main reason to why he was forced out of Chelsea, number 3, squad size. As I said before, Chelsea had made an almost 50-man squad, with competition in every position, especially in attack. In the 24-25 season, if Sterling were to stay at Chelsea, he would have to compete with Jadon Sancho, Mikhailo Mudryk, and Nkunku, Noni Madueke, Neto, and Tyreek George. There was simply way too much competition, and with no reason to pick Sterling over younger, faster players, Maresca straight up told Raheem that he would struggle to get minutes in the side. So what happened? Well, Sterling moved to Arsenal on a 1-season loan on deadline day. Even though he would face competition at Arsenal, at least he wouldn't be stuck with Chelsea's bomb squad. Well, he might as well have been, as he had little to no impact on Arsenal's season. He started only 7 times in the Premier League for the Gunners, often being hooked around the 60th minute, scoring only 1 goal in all competitions in the EFL Cup against Bolton. Fans weren't happy with him either, noting that even though they paid nothing for him, it still felt like they were getting robbed. Performance after performance, he looked worse and worse, losing more and more confidence game week after game week, hesitating more and more on the pitch. It simply seemed like he was past his best. It feels strange because he's only 30. However, most players have a playing clock, an imaginary clock that counts down their years at the top. For Sterling, it feels like this time had ran out. And the reason why it had happened so early is because he played at the top level since he was 17. We're talking about 12 to 13 years of top flight football in one of the most competitive leagues in the world. Others start playing at this level around 23, 24, some even way later at 27 or 28, leading them to start declining later on in their career, around 33, 34, or even 35. Sterling returned to Chelsea from his loan on July the 1st, 2025, and the status at the club remained the same. He was unwanted. Maresca once again sent him to the bomb squad with Alex Disasi, and despite some rumors of him moving to Fulham or West Ham, nothing concrete came to light. With the Saudi Arabian and Turkish transfer windows now closed, this has officially left Sterling without a club, and this might go on for a while, considering Sterling has a £350,000 a week wage that he is still earning despite not playing. Not too many clubs are willing to offer this amount of money for a player that is way past his prime, and Sterling, probably knowing this, has decided to simply stay in the position he is now. If any other club wants to offer this money, good. If Chelsea wants to play him, good. If Chelsea wants to terminate his contract, he will receive around £20 million in compensation, so still good. The only thing that can suffer is his career without playing time, but at this point he probably doesn't even care. He's making incredible money for just training, and despite Chelsea trying to bother him by forcing him to train in weird times like at 7 or 8 in the afternoon, this doesn't seem to bother him. Let's not forget that he signed a 5-year contract, so he will be earning this absurd amount of money until 2027. So what's next for him? Well, he can do two things: either leave the ball in Chelsea's court or make a decision himself. If he leaves the ball in Chelsea's court, he will profit financially. If he decides to make a decision and leave Chelsea regardless of what wage he will earn when leaving, he has the potential to revive his career again. It really depends on Sterling's ambitions. He either chases the money and accepts he will never play at the top level again, or he decides to sacrifice a life-changing salary for a chance, not a guarantee, at reviving his career. The decision is Sterling's.